Chapter 13. A brief outline of evolution, the relation of the masters to humanity. Just as the law of karma is indissolubly connected with the law of reincarnation, so is reincarnation indissolubly connected with the law of evolution, for without reincarnation, evolution could not be carried on. Hence, a brief outline of the chief factors in evolution on this planet will first be considered. But in this short chapter, we do not attempt to cover all phases of the subject. We merely view it from one angle, with a full recognition that it may be viewed from many angles. As correctly stated by the naturalist Agassiz, all things had their origin in spirit, evolution having originally begun from above and proceeding downwards, instead of the reverse as taught in Darwinian theory. At the first rebirth of our Earth, for the law of cyclic rebirth applies to planets and systems as well as to men, it was brought into manifestation or created by a ray of pure white light from the Absolute penetrating into the chaotic debris of previous world periods. As a ray of light in passing through a prism is separated into 7 color rays, so this ray of spiritual light in passing through the prism of manifestation was separated into 7 great differentiations or color rays called hierarchies. These are composed of spiritual beings manifesting the creative power of their color. For just as science has demonstrated that every color has its special and characteristic work in the world, so each of these spiritual color rays has its own part to play in the evolution of both man and the lower kingdoms. Each ray is presided over by one of the manifestations of deity collectively spoken of in the Bible as the Elohim, and in Eastern teaching as the Rishis, sons of wisdom, etc., who need this manifestation to perfect their experience and to prepare conditions to further the evolution of lower beings, the humanity of this globe under their charge. The great spiritual masters constituting the higher degrees of each ray gained their godlike perfection in previous world periods of almost immeasurable length, and gained mastery over the cosmic forces while upon the lunar chain of globes. Hence they are called our lunar ancestors or fathers, Pitris. But they are still needed the experience of guiding the evolution of this darkest, because lowest of planets, the Earth, to perfect them in wisdom. After they had enjoyed a rest or a period of withdrawal from activity and manifestation for incalculable eons, they took up the formation and evolution of this planet. By the power of concentrated divine will and wisdom, they consciously formed and brought into manifestation our Earth as an advanced field wherein to train and further the evolution of humanity. They did this by first projecting from themselves into the centers, where the inert matter for the new planet was sleeping in darkness, the thought forms of that which was to be, and later projected their astral bodies. This inert matter comprised all the material on all planes which they, in the course of their evolution toward godhood, had thrown off and had not had the opportunity to spiritualize and redeem. Hence it was laid aside until they had gained the godlike power which would enable them consciously to redeem all their emanations and creations. If each soul was required to redeem in one life all its mistakes and spiritualize every atom with which it had been connected in even one life, the cycle of necessity would be never-ending. Instead of all these tasks that are beyond the strength of the soul in any one incarnation are held back until it has grown strong enough, little by little, to work them out. However, the essence of all the mistakes remains with the evolving planet as a part of the world karma, so that when the evolving soul reaches the point where it can begin consciously to redeem its leftovers, it will also help to redeem the same influence in the world karma. During the first 2 cyclic day periods of the Earth, the Elohim are said to have passed through the whole triple cycle of the mineral, vegetable, and animal kingdoms in their most ethereal, filmy, and rudimentary forms, in order to clothe themselves in and assimilate the nature of the newly formed chain. After ethereal human forms had been evolved by these lunar fathers at the close of the 3rd day period, they gradually became so dense that it may be said that they clothed themselves in flesh, or coats of skin as the Bible puts it. This was done consciously for the sake of evolution and experience, and not, as theology teaches, as a result of a fall through disobedience. It was a fall only in the sense of a descent into matter. These human forms, created and informed by the lunar fathers, had no self-conscious, only animal mind instinct, and could not continue their evolution until they had been endowed with human mind or self-consciousness. Animal consciousness attains to its ultimate perfection in reason, while human consciousness attains to its ultimate perfection in the direct knowledge gained through intuition. As the whole of a species is guided by one group soul, Instinct is the power of the animal to respond directly to the consciousness of the group soul. The human animal, being guided by his own Father in heaven or his own individual soul in intuition, consciously recognizes the direct guiding voice of his divine higher self. Hence, intuition stands exactly over instinct on the spiritual path of evolution. Both are the voices of their respective souls, and the animal imparted collectively to the species, and man personally to the individual. The gift of mind was accomplished at the beginning of the fourth root race, by the projection into man of the divine spark from a still higher class of spiritual beings, the solar fathers, Pitris. It was at this time that the history of man as a corporeal being began. There are three streams of evolution going on in man at the same time, each advancing along its own path, and each inextricably interwoven with and assisting the other. It is this complexity that makes so much confusion in the study of reincarnation. There is the evolution of the animal body, evolved and informed by the lunar fathers, the evolution of mind implanted in the bodies by the sons of man, the solar fathers, and the evolution of character, which is the result of the overshadowing spirit, a divine emanation from the Absolute, working through both the solar and lunar fathers, and forming a divine indweller, the God within us. The history of humanity shows that each of these lines of evolution has been made the object of worship. A. There are those who worship the perfection of the animal body, holding that their first duty is to bring it into perfection, maintain its health, and prolong its life upon the physical plane. Yet prolonged life in a physical body without spiritual perfection would be a curse rather than a blessing. This doctrine reached its greatest perfection among the Greeks, many of whom are now reincarnating and are putting forth the old ideas. B. There are those who worship the mind, considering it the supreme power. The so-called age of reason in reality is the age of the worship of mind. C. There are those who give exclusive worship to the studies which make for spiritual advance, even at the expense of physical and intellectual life. Hermits and yogis, for example. Perfect evolution, however, can be attained only when the three go hand in hand, for spiritual evolution can manifest perfectly only as a result of the harmonious blending of all three, a perfect mind in a perfect body, illumined by spiritual intuition. The above accounts for the many discrepancies in life and evolution, for it is impossible for any human being to say that one is more advanced than another. One may be advanced along one line, while another may be equally as advanced along another line. Although we speak of the lunar fathers as our physical progenitors, it must be borne in mind that they are divine, having attained atonement ere the evolution of this planet began. After the astral forms or models were produced by the lunar fathers, the evolution of the external form or body round the astral is produced by the terrestrial forces, just as in the case of the lower kingdoms. But the evolution of the internal or real man is purely spiritual. It is now no more a passage of the impersonal monad through many and various forms of matter, but a journey of the pilgrim soul through various states, not only of matter but of self-consciousness and self-perception. Thus it was that, aided by the emanations from their progenitors, the celestial solar fathers, who stand to the lunar fathers as our higher selves stand to us, the lunar fathers become the progenitors of humanity. These great classes of spiritual fathers, who are still living and guiding human evolution from the higher realms, are the divine men known to us as the Masters of Wisdom. There are many accounts of the presence of these divine men, the gods on earth, founding nations, establishing laws, teaching and guiding humanity face to face, to be found in the sacred writings of all ancient people, many of whom still claim to have sprung from the gods. The 7 great groups of these spiritual beings are classified in a manner similar to the groups of colors in our solar spectrum, each group being called a ray, bearing the name of one of the 7 colors, the red ray, yellow ray, violet ray, etc. Just as the colors of the spectrum are emanations from the one white light, so are these spiritual creators emanations from the Divine One, the Absolute. These rays constitute 7 great hierarchies, which are presided over by 7 still greater celestial beings, each of whom is called the progenitor or father of his ray. It must be borne in mind, however, that each ray contains representatives of all the other rays. In looking at the sun, we see a halo composed of the 7 colors in a concentric ring. These rings represent the hierarchies, and in reality conserve the forces of the colors composing them. The same law is illustrated in the rainbow, although only one segment of the circle is visible. Each great ray or hierarchy of master manifests in turn, and like the notes in a musical scale in rhythmic cadence, its progenitor or father presiding during its manifestation as captain of the host. All the masters belonging to a ray are most active during the manifestation of their ray, while those belonging to all the other rays, even the progenitors, are for that period subservient to the ray that is manifesting in activity. This does not mean that the other rays are dormant, but like a grand symphony, when one note or ray is dominant, all the others are complementary. Thus absolute harmony results. While we say a certain ray or color is presiding, in reality it is man's consciousness that is passing through the band of color or ray of force and consciousness, learning its lessons and gaining its forces. For example, a celestial being is the progenitor or father of the red ray or hierarchy of masters. Under him are the masters of his subrays and lesser subrays, and so on down to those souls who are achieving mastery and entering the ranks from the races now on earth. It is the aggregate of all these masters that is known to us as the Great White Lodge. It is called the White Lodge because, like the white light, it is the harmonious blending of all the 7 rays. The Great White Lodge is divided, just as is humanity, into 7 great classes or degrees, each of which is subdivided into 7 orders. The 7th or lowest order of the lodge overlaps or blends into humanity, just as humanity overlaps or blends into the animal kingdom. Not that the masters of the lowest order are not human, but more than human. The masters of this lowest order are still upon the physical plane, using physical bodies and working with and teaching humanity. There are also certain orders of masters who are guiding evolution below the human kingdom as group souls. Each of the masters composing the higher degrees is the progenitor or father of many human beings, for while gaining the perfected wisdom of former planets during their long periods of evolution, they were consciously creating, both by the power of divine will and by emanation. Every emanation of their life substance and every cell composing their various bodies has now evolved into the human kingdom. And the master of wisdom who originally sent out the emanation or cell is called its spiritual father, no matter what its present stage of evolution. Hence, all mankind are the children of one of these great spiritual creators. In the same manner, we are the progenitors and sometime must become the guides and saviors of every cell that has composed our various bodies in all our incarnations, as well as all the creatures created by our thoughts and desires. When eons hence they have evolved to a point analogous to present humanity, for they are the children of our creation. They are not, however, redeemed as individual atoms, but as more or less composite units. Each separate cell does not evolve into a separate human being, but according to its nature and stage of evolution when cast off, will it become a part of an organ in a human body. Man's body, therefore, is an aggregation of many sentient lesser centers of consciousness, hence the necessity for man's ruling his subconscious mind, as it is the synthetic product of the consciousness of the lesser centers. In the early days of the 4th root race, when humanity were but children, having newly received the gift of self-consciousness or mind, they were guided and taught face to face by the fathers, the Elohim, just as a father and mother, for these great beings were both father and mother androgynous, might guide and teach a child. But when the child has grown to manhood, it must leave its parents' guiding care and go out alone to meet the trials and temptations of the world and prove how much of the parents' teaching it is built into character. This is what humanity has been doing ever since that time, for by the end of the 4th root race, humanity had grown up and become disobedient. With the destruction of Atlantis began the individual working out of that disobedience and an endeavor to put into practice the lessons learned. The red ray is now manifesting through humanity and has been for an immense period of time, the 4th round, the whole Bible being but a history of this ray. Consequently, the great being, who is the progenitor of that ray, is what might be called the commander-in-chief of the forces of evolution operative throughout this cycle. Humanity has to evolve all the way through this red ray, from its lowest subray to its highest. Having passed the middle point of its densest manifestation, humanity is now upon the upward arc toward more spiritual states of being. As the occult maxim, as above, so below, and vice versa, holds good for all planes and all laws, in reality, there being but one great law. To form a conception of what lies before us, we have but to consider what the lower aspects of red stand for. Red is the color of the blood, which in the body carries the life force. Hence, in its lower aspects, red is expressed by anger, passion, war, anarchy, and bloodshed. It is through these expressions of the fourth of the red ray that humanity has been struggling until it has reached the point where the lessons of the lower octave must be registered into the higher. The lifeblood of humanity has reached the point where, laden with the vileness and the effluvia of animal man, it is being purified by the breath of the Spirit, and henceforth must take on a new tint, just as the physical blood is purified and changes its color in the lungs. Anger purified becomes love force, an energy that will conquer all difficulties. Passion must be turned to fervor and ardor for spiritual union. War turned to spiritual warfare, where good triumphs over evil, light over darkness, anarchy becomes the one law of brotherhood. Bloodshed becomes the pouring out of the spiritual life force, for as blood carries the physical life force, its correspondence on the higher plane is the vehicle for the spiritual life force. The highest tint will be reached when the spiritual sun shines through this red ray and permeates it and brings out the rose tint of Christ's love and brotherhood. The vision of St. John, as portrayed in the book of Revelation, and commonly accepted as a description of the end of the world, is simply the winding up of the dominance of the red ray. Although the same symbolic teachings are given in the book of Enoch, it does not mean that St. John copied from Enoch, but that both were teaching the same universal truth received from the same divine progenitor. In the Bible, much prominence is given to the word blood, and the blood of the Lamb, which was slain from the foundation of the world. This refers to the force of the red ray, which is the lifeblood of humanity, predominating as it does at the beginning of every sub-race, and thus running through and permeating the whole root race. Those which came out of great tribulation and have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb are the ones who have learned the lessons of the red ray, the lessons of the vital life force, and have thus washed their garments or body white and pure in the stream of living spiritual force. They are those who have fought the good fight and are crowned victors, ready to take up the lessons of the next dominant ray. Only by evolution through all that pertains to the red ray, spiritual life force of the soul, its blood, so to speak, can humanity be washed in the blood of the Lamb and be redeemed. Certain texts in the Bible regarding blood, which are repulsive and inhuman in their exoteric meaning, if looked at in the light of the above explanation, at once take on a new significance, even the most abused and revolting hymn. There is a fountain filled with blood, drawn from Emmanuel's veins, and sinners plunged beneath that flood lose all their guilty stains, becomes quite comprehensible when viewed from this standpoint. You have no real spiritual life in you until you have correlated with the higher aspect of the red ray, which is indeed the blood of the Christ.